Green Trees.
Here's my joints.
All right, we're back. Thanks for staying with us.
Losing them damn things.
We have Fred Stig-Nielsen here and David Rudoi, Rudoi Law. And he was also involved in that case up there in the Isabella.
Was
Judge
he?
Chamberlain. Yeah, sure he was. He had Leslie and they got out after the exam.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Oh,
he had
sure,
Leslie.
Section 4 and all that stuff, all that jazz up there and all
Yeah,
kinds
you
of
won
good
that on
stuff.
Section 8.
Fun time. I watched Michael almost jump across the table and strangle a prosecutor.
Well, that case is still going on, Dave. I don't know if you heard that. Yes, it is. It's still going on.
I know,
Yeah,
I know. Believe me, I know.
All right, listen. There's a thing going on. There's multiple scandals that have plagued the state of Michigan's crime lab. I think most rational thinkers would suggest that just by virtue of the naming of the Michigan State Police Forensic Science Division suggests that there's some kind of connection there that makes them less than objective. And I say that because as scientists, it's the science that's supposed to drive the testimony. It's the science that's supposed to drive the spirit and the honor and the integrity of the entire process that they engage in. And unfortunately, we can name several circumstances time and time again, not just in the state of Michigan, but it goes back a long way when we talk about science and junk science. For example, you hear today all these defendants that are getting released on the Innocence Project. They're using DNA samples to release them. Many of them were convicted of bite mark testimony, shoe print testimony, hair follicle testimony, things that at the time the FBI came in and said this stuff is accurate and this can be trusted. Sure enough, convictions are being. So the point is the science that's used in and as ways to convict defendants has traditionally been, by the statistics that we have from past experiences, been bullshit.
Yeah.
And it continues today in a number of different areas.
The science isn't the problem, though.
Well, you're right. And a lot of times there's a mixture. One of the important in the Isabella case and other cases when we were dealing with the crime lab scandal, the reporting of could-be synthetic marijuana, we're not sure. The courts would say things like, well, the GCMS machine works accurately, and that doesn't that you can't fight that. That's a 99%. But it's not that. It's the way they're reporting it, of course, because they have duties to report specific things. Anyways, enough about that. Let's get into the bad breath here. What is the bad breath things? Someone's going to have to give us a little foundation here for our listeners to understand. This is an important. Fred, do you want to lay some of that down for us?
Well, I can give it from, I guess, the beginning of this past year. I think it was.
Sure, please do that.
I might get the date wrong, but I think it was January 6th of 2020 or somewhere right in that time. There was a letter sent out or some communication sent out to local prosecutors' offices about 4 days prior to the MSP going public with the fact that they had discovered fraudulent activity with some of their contractors. And when I say contractors, a lot of people probably don't know that MSP farms out and had been farming out the responsibilities of the maintenance and the calibration of the data master DMT in the state of Michigan to a third party, to the company that it started. It was NPAS and then became Intoximeters, and then Intoximeters contracts with individual subcontractors to take care of these machines. There's some 200 of them in the state of Michigan, and there was at one point there was 3 contractors. The one guy retired that was responsible for the UP, so it left 2 subcontractors to manage all of the machines in the state of Michigan. And of course, people know that data master DMTs were kind of providing these magical numbers that you as a defense attorney, if when you're confronted with it, you got to tell your client and have them think very long and hard about whether or not you want to pursue fighting this when you have something that's well over a 0.08, because it's been viewed by jurors, I think, historically as kind of a gospel. So in early 2020, we find out that 2 of these contractors have been fired for suspected fraud, and then we don't really find out a lot of stuff for some number of months, and it's kind of under lock and key. And I think there was people, perhaps David Rudoi and you, Mike, as well as Mike Nichols and these other attorneys that were really prodding hard, trying to get this information, figuring out what was going on. And only recently, I think, it's come to light once we knew that they were criminally charged, and even once these individuals were criminally charged with forging records, committing fraud in the course of their jobs. Even then, the information was being hidden from us. So I'm kind of rambling because there's a lot of information in there. But
one important point of this is that, when the information had come out that the Michigan State Police had an issue with people that they contracted to do the vetting of the machines and verifying their accuracy, it becomes a huge question because it just brings into doubt whatever they've been doing up to that point, and what and how are they going to resolve it, right? And they have every interest to not overblow it, and also have every interest to try to minimize it. My biggest complaint for all of this is that when they realized that they self-investigated, they should have called in a third party
Once they knew there was a problem, they should.
Yes, they didn't, because the idea is that Michigan State.
They were pretty transparent about the problem, though.
Well, but think of it this way: what happens is the Michigan State Police may have probably known, but they get to investigate the people that they're in a contract with.
Right.
They would have liability civilly as being the contract associated with that, but a duty to oversee it,
right.
a duty to make sure it's going on. But instead, what they do is they drop that and they charge them. I mean, who can do that? You know what I'm saying? They're probably at fault, and the way they're going to frame this is if they themselves do the investigation and have an outside third party. Anyways, I digress.
But I just got to note, they were not transparent about it.
I agree.
They were hiding exculpatory information. Impeachment evidence is exculpatory. They knew these guys were lying. They knew they were not showing up, and they weren't letting the prosecutors know about it. They weren't letting the defense attorneys know about it. People were pleading guilty to crimes that they shouldn't be, and it wasn't until they realized how bad it really was in January, and they had to fire them and charge them criminally, that they told anybody about it.
So they
knew about it. Fred laid this out in his cross-exam. They started to know there were problems back in March?
Oh, let's stop. Let's back it up a little bit now, because we now have kind of set the tone here of what was going on. We learned over the year in this course that they'd fired people within this contract. They were internally investigating them, and they ultimately got charged.
No, they were
criminally.
They were in breach of contract.
But they
sent them a breach notice.
whatever. But they charged them criminally.
Yeah.
And then part of the announcement was that certain jurisdictions that the people were, this third-party employees were supposed to be covering in those departments at those breathalyzer data master machines. We knew which ones they were, and they've disclosed those. So, if I'm not mistaken, you guys had a case up there in that jurisdiction that you're in, and you had a client whose data master results and the required verification of the machine that produced those results was one of the machines that had been suspect to this failing to verify the accuracy of the machine.